And we're back for episode 2 of Race Recap with Morgan and
Gage.
So yesterday we had our Richland County Fair race here locally in town. So it was a real short drive and a pretty good race overall. What do you think, Gage?
It was pretty fun. I had lots of fun at the race.
So do you like it being just across town versus like 30 minutes, an hour away or anything?
I like it a lot being like that.
Yeah, because you seem to always not want to drive somewhere to go
Yes.
ride, play baseball, swim, whatever it is, right? You want it, for some reason, you want everything to be like in your backyard. And well, this one pretty well was in the backyard, just, you know, probably less than 5 minutes across town. So let's jump into our practice. So this is our first practice of the day. Again, Gage is kind of mixed in there with, you had a bunch of like pit bike, older guys in there, as well as kids your age. So it was kind of a mess on practice, but they did eventually get them separated out correctly. And you'll see the kids on the left were Gage's class, and the kids on the right were a much older pit bike class. So let's go ahead and get practice started. So overall, the track I thought was pretty decent. So what happens here, Gage? Let's wait. Oh. What happened? Stalled it.
Didn't give it enough gas.
Yep.
But it's just practice.
Exactly. We just got her in neutral.
Yep.
Got her fired up again. No problem. So the start was really short. It was kind of a weird S turn here to the left. And then went into
a little single.
Yep, a little single, and then
some whoops.
Some decent sized whoops, really, weren't they?
Yeah.
Kyle Porter, he's the one that kind of was in charge of making the track and everything.
Yep.
And he's a pretty good rider, and so he definitely made some difficult obstacles in general, didn't he? Yeah, that jump you just went over there is a really pretty steep double.
Yep.
Followed kind of another double into this corner after the checkered flag there, or the flag stand. More of a single there, going up to a pretty good sized tabletop.
Yep.
Another single. Some guys were tripling that. Some guys were tabletop single into the corner. Out of the corner, you got another double. And right there in the middle of the infield, a pretty good little tabletop for your guys' size.
Yep.
And maybe another double-ish triple into the corner.
Yep.
So there's a lot of room there between the corner of the barrel, I guess, and the outside berm. Now for your A-class riders, B-class riders, you know, they're using probably that whole corner section. But since we're probably not going at super high speeds, we don't necessarily need that whole corner. So you were hugging the inside is pretty good.
Yep.
So what did you think of this jump? That was definitely the biggest jump on the track right there. What are you thinking as we're walking the track, as you see something like that's a big? I'd be nervous to hit like a jump like that size. So like, how does that make you feel walking up to that one?
It makes me feel like I can't go too fast on it, or I'll probably nosedive. Or like coming out of the corner, I usually try to go as fast as I can, but then there's immediately like a really big jump.
Yeah, so for you little guys, and especially like the 50s, there was a few 50s that were having a little bit of trouble even getting up the hill to even just continue on the track. I mean, they weren't jumping it at all.
Yeah.
But like it was steep enough for those guys to struggle a little bit. But on the other side of the coin, you get guys like Michael Hicks and Carter Gordon that are, you know, running super good, super fast in like that pro class.
Yeah.
You know, those guys are flying over it, and you know, it makes for some pretty exciting racing.
Yep.
So what were the track conditions in practice? Usually they're not amazing conditions, you know, first thing out of the gate. So I guess tell me a little bit about how the track was as far as condition-wise in this first practice.
Well, it felt like, in the first corner where you do like the S turn into the whoops, like, so we were watching practice before I went up to go, and there was like big 450s, and someone like was standing up and like slid over since it was so slippery in that turn.
Yeah,
practice.
They'd been putting some water on it through the afternoon, just to hopefully keep some moisture in it and keep the dust down. And so right there where you just went, there was a guy that kind of kept sliding out. I mean, it's a pretty flat corner, and he kept sliding out. I think he did it a couple times, I think.
Yeah.
But
There's a couple people that slid out, but they didn't. Some people didn't crash.
yeah, a lot of these flat corners, it's a little difficult to get speed
Yeah.
when they're flat and when they're a little bit of wet. It's kind of a
Yeah.
bad combination to get a lot of traction,
Yeah.
especially if you're tilted over a little bit. Your whole tire is not on the ground, so you definitely lose traction there.
Yeah.
All right, well, that concludes practice number 1. So I guess overall, tell me about when you came back to the truck. How was your attitude about practice?
Well, coming back, I did not like the track, and I was just mad that I saw it in the start.
Oh, yeah? Well, because I remember you came back and you were saying everything was terrible.
Yeah.
Track was terrible. It sucked. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what part sucked? What was bad? And you said everything. And I lost my temper a little bit, right? Like, hey, tell me what sucked, and then let's talk about it. You know, was it the whoops?
Yeah.
Was it the corners? You know, because if you just say everything sucks, I can't really help you with everything,
Yeah.
right? So we need to break down what specific parts were we having problems with. And so anyway, moving into let's go back to that. So with having a little bit of rough practice, I mean, how'd that affect your attitude going into the first heat race?
Like, not very happy.
Yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
a little bit overwhelmed probably, and not super good spirits. Which I get that. I mean,
Yep.
I've been to muddy practices before, you know, and you're slipping and sliding and get things muddy, and it's
Yeah.
never a good time to get muddy and things like that. So I can see how that affects your attitude going into the first race. But
Yeah.
all right, so now we got the heat race. So we were actually, I think, first gate pick because I
First
got
gate
there
pick.
early,
Yep.
and so I was able to get our pick of the litter as far as spots. And my theory was we wanted somewhat of a straight shot into that first corner.
Yeah.
We always want to try to make that first, like this is an S turn, just like Fairfield. They had an S curve as well. And so my idea was having the most straight line from
Yes.
there to the first corner, right?
You want to make it as straight as a line as you can. So you don't have to, like, turn left, turn right.
Exactly.
You kind of stay straight.
Exactly. And so that's kind of why I picked this somewhat inside gate, because I didn't want to get pinched on the far outside. You don't want to go
Yep.
far inside because you get pinched there as well. So,
Yeah.
all right. So now we got CP Hunt giving everybody the check all over, check once.
Yep.
And the 30-second board goes up, goes sideways, and then gate drop. So what happened on the gate drop?
Biggest wheelie ever.
Biggest wheelie ever again, right?
Yep.
Same thing at Fairfield there a week or two ago.
Yep.
We're starting in first gear because when we were practice starting in second gear, it was really bogging on us, bogging
Yeah.
down. I think we weren't giving enough throttle yet, but
Yep.
you're getting more starts under your belt, and so I think that's, doing well for you because you're giving it more throttle, and you're, getting used to dumping that clutch and going.
Yep.
Where we've practiced at the property, I feel like the dirt's been really loose
Yeah.
and slick, and so
Yeah.
you spin. So that wheelie off the start definitely
Yeah.
doesn't give you a great start
Yeah.
because once you're vertical and you set down, you're off the throttle, right? And so that gives the other kids an opportunity to kind of sneak away.
And you also have to get, like, on, off, on. So you can't just go on, off. You
Yeah.
gotta keep going. And these whoops, I was going for second in, like, the practice and heat, and it didn't, like, feel that good. So, well, actually, just in practice, I was going through second. So in, like, the heat race, I tried first, and it really helped me.
See, I was afraid first was going to be a little bit too slow for you and too responsive.
Yeah.
So like if you gave it a little bit of gas, it'd really kind of throw you back and forth. And with whoops, obviously your weight's getting bounced
Yeah.
back and forth. And so I was afraid first would kind of cause you to kind of whiskey throttle and get a
Yeah.
little bit out of control. So, but no, that's just the thing. You got to go out there and see what works for you. And I don't know your bike super well. I mean, I'm not riding it. You are.
Yeah.
And so, go out there, try first, try second, see what works best and go from there. So there was a few kids in this class that were in our Wayne County Fair class there a
Yeah.
couple weeks ago. Number 13 was there.
42.
42 as well. Both very good riders, quick
Yep.
kids. So they've kind of taken off, kind of like they did at Fairfield as well.
Yep.
Having a few guys having issues there, tipping over or stalling it.
That guy that I just passed was down for 2 laps.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's quite a bit. I think the kid that just passed you there is actually the leader.
Yep.
He was really quick clearing that tabletop. There's second place. Is that Weiler? I think that's Weiler there in the orange.
Yeah.
So going on the white flag lap here. There's 42 from Fairfield as well.
There's slash 42. This time we came early so we can get the actual 42.
Yep, we had to be X on the first race, didn't we?
Yep. It sucked.
And here comes old Justin Westall with the checkered flag for us. They changed how you exit here as well between the heat race or between practice and the heat races, because there was kids coming on that last corner that you just came on. Actually, in your practice, I watched 2 kids hit had a head-on crash with each other because one kid went too far out wide and kind of got into the other lane and just kind of smashed into each other. So that's what the tape and barrels were there, because they were kind of making sure people knew where to go. And then so that made things a little bit difficult, because as you're exiting, you're having to wait for traffic going around the other way, and it just made that a little bit confusing. But probably overall a good idea, because that probably is a little bit of a safety hazard, you know, how they kind of came across there. And because I know we had to walk the track a couple times just to make sure you understood where to go after that finish line jump. So
It was a pretty confusing layout.
yeah, because previous years at Always Fair Race, they've had like 100-yard start straight. Like you get some pretty high speeds going into a left-hand corner. This year, Kyle made that where that start straight usually is. That's where that kind of right after the checkered flag, you make that right-hand corner. That's where the start straight would have been. So he's actually added a few jumps and a tabletop in there. So a little bit different of a layout, but it's always good to change things up. So it was good. So moving on to the main event. Now we've got, holy cow, main event. So your first race was probably what? Nearly 8 o'clock?
Yeah.
Because, well, no, probably a little earlier than that. Probably 8 o'clock, because you were number 3 on the lineup for heat races. And they got started a little bit late, about 7:20 or so. And then what time was it? Well, let's go back. So the main event, it is probably 10:45. And you were only number 9 on the main event list.
Yeah.
And it is 10:45. Tell them, what were you doing about 10 minutes before your main event?
I was actually sleeping.
So we had waited around all night. We went and met Mom and sister out in the Midway and had some snacks with them, had a little bit of dinner, you know, messed around, went back out again, I think. And still, that was like barely intermission. And so you were like, I'm kind of tired. I think I'm going to lay down. And so Gage laid back, went into the back seat of the car and laid down and actually fell asleep. I mean, it's, you know, we're not people that, you know, get to bed super late. So it was, you know, your bedtime, essentially.
Way
or past your bedtime, really. And so I was sitting there just kind of listening to the announcers and watching the race lineup. And when we were about 4 or 5 races away, I started waking you up. And you were hard to wake up. Like, it's kind of like, you know, first thing in the morning trying to wake you up. You don't necessarily always want to get out of bed. So it was a little bit of a chore to get you out of bed and get you to go race. And so you got out of bed, got dressed up, then what'd you do?
Well, after I was out of the bed, I was shivering. I was literally freezing cold.
Yeah, it dropped in temperature a decent amount, a little bit, but then like you had to get your body back into the right mindset, right? So you're doing jumping jacks and kind of running around the car a little bit, just to kind of get that blood pumping. Because my theory has always been that, you know, when I'd go ride and I'd pull up to the line to like practice, and as soon as I get there, you know, go ride, I'd get like 5 minutes and just be like dead tired, you know, out of breath and can't hang on. Then I'd go back to the truck, sit, get a drink, cool off a little bit, and go back out. And then I could go for like, you know, another 20 minutes. In my opinion, or my theory, it's, you know, you got to get that shock to your body. Like, hey, wake up, it's time to work. And so I'm trying to get you to do that as well with your jumping jacks. And the Fairfield race, you ended up sprinting to the car thinking you were late, but so that kind of worked too. So anyway, we're up and at 'em now. It's probably about 10:45, 10:50, 10:50.
Yeah.
And we're heading down to our main event. Right, here comes CP again, checking for everybody.
Yep.
Our theory here was a lot less throttle off the start, just to get out of the start without popping a wheelie. We're next to the first place finisher, or maybe second place finisher. Not.
And here, somebody crashed in the corner, and then somebody went all the way up there in a flower bed.
Yeah, so some kid ended up crashing there,
Yep.
kind of tipping over. I think those two came together.
Yeah.
It caused the kid on the right to actually fall, and I think he was actually kind of hurt.
And then the kid on the left had to go, went all the way up in the flower bed.
Yeah, and so they actually ended up red flagging this section right here, this race.
Yeah.
They're afraid that he was probably going to be hurt for a while. And,
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a volunteer fireman or who it was, but somebody picked him up pretty quick to get him off the track.
Yeah.
I don't think he was hurt enough where we needed a backboard or anything there, but they got his bike and him off the track pretty quick.
Yep.
So I think probably didn't need the red flag there, but probably better safe than sorry, especially when we're dealing with kids.
Yeah.
And there's no big money on the line here, so it's just trophies. So might as well be extra safe.
Yep.
So now what's going through your mind? Have you ever had a red flag restart?
Nope. First ever. And
So
I was
what-
like, what happened? I was confused.
I think I even hear you say that you asked me what happened.
Yeah.
You get back to me here.
And I started to get a little nervous right here. Because I was like, hopefully I don't get a bad start, because that was a really good start I just had. But I was worried if I got a bad start on this one.
So now there's so much nerves involved with that start, right?
Yeah.
It's a super important part of the race. If you start in the back, it's hard to make your way through. So you have all that build up, all those nerves, all to get not even a quarter of a lap in and get restarted, sent all the way back. I mean, we had a successful launch out of the gate.
Yep.
We didn't wheelie, we didn't, so we got out of the gate clean. But now guess what? Let's go back and start all over again.
Yep.
So my concern here was they were taking a while to kind of get going between races. So I was afraid they were going to take a long time to get us going again. But I can see CP coming across real quick. We were able to get started pretty quickly. There was a lot more kids in this class than our Fairfield races as well. So quite a bit more competition today. So this is your first track with probably a whoop section that big or that long. Overall, what do you think about the whoops in general?
Well, really, they weren't my favorite, but they weren't the worst. Because you gotta stay strong in the whoops, but also it's kind of hard for me because I can't just skip them and go over them like the pros do.
Yeah, when Michael Hicks was going through those, a lot of those A guys, they're just barely touching the tops of them, just flying across them. It's super neat. So back in the day when I used to race, both me and Uncle Kyle, we were both pretty decent in the whoop sections.
Yeah.
I'm not tall by any means, but the taller you are, typically the better you are in the whoops to let that bike move under you and stuff. So that was always a strong suit of mine. And especially if you got to be a little fearless to go through the whoops at speed. Because you drop that front end there, it's going to get huck-a-buck and end up sending you to the ground. So it took a little bit of bravery and a little bit of height to do well in those whoops.
Yeah.
So that kid's using all the way out to that berm corner. You're cutting there inside, which I think that's a lot of wasted mileage going all the way out to that berm. They're not. He's using it a little bit. That one, not that corner's not as wide there, but using it a little bit. But for you guys, you little guys, that's a huge corner. A lot of space there. So overall, do you like chasing, or you like being chased?
Being chased, probably.
Oh, really? So you'd rather be in, for this example, this kid here, you'd rather be in front of him and have you behind you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would like being in front more probably because I like knowing that there's someone behind me, so I gotta push harder and harder.
Really?
Every second. Yeah.
And already there's the checkered flag.
Yep.
I think they had shortened up the races as well at this point.
Yeah.
Because they were running behind. Like I said, it was 11:04-ish by the time you got done, so it was a pretty quick race. See, that's interesting because I would have definitely rather chased than be chased.
Yeah.
Because if I can see that kid right in front of me, I know exactly how fast I need to go or where I'm losing time or gaining time on him, and then kind of change it up there. So that's kind of interesting. So I fast forwarded through this footage because I thought it was interesting.
That was a nice race. Yeah. I didn't place that well, but I felt fine.
Happy?
Huh?
Happy?
Yeah, that was fun.
It was fun?
Yeah. I wasn't nervous the whole time, I just noticed.
You weren't?
No.
That's good. Maybe you should take a nap before every race. So, I mean, just to be brutally honest, we didn't place that well, right? I mean, we have no new trophy to show off like we did at Fairfield. But I was super pumped to watch this footage back later and hear you talking to yourself in like such a positive manner.
Yeah.
Like, that was a good race. Like, I didn't do that well, but that was fun. So yeah, I was pretty pumped to hear, even though we didn't have great placing, you know, great finish.
Yep.
You were still in good spirits. I think you said a couple times that was the most fun race I've ever had.
Yep.
Which is good, perfect, because we're not going out there to destroy everybody, right?
Yeah.
We are still in this learning process of how the bike works, how our body works,
Yep.
how the tracks work, you know,
Yep.
what works, what doesn't work. So I think that's makes me really happy to know that you're, you know, again, didn't finish great, but you still had fun, you still learned,
Yep.
and you still want to do it probably next week too, right? Cool. So overall, scale from 1 to 10, how do you rate yesterday's overall day?
Probably a 9.
A 9, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, why 9?
Probably because like in the heat and the main, I had lots of fun, like more fun than I've ever had. So yeah, I just had a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I've ever had in races.
That's awesome. Why do you think that is? Did you really like the track or just out there
think it's
competing in
because,
front of
like,
people?
I think it was because like I thought to myself, I'm here to have fun. Like I'm not here to place like very super good. I'm just here to have fun.
Good. See, I think that's important to get that pressure off you, especially such early years of, you know, trying to race, trying to learn how things go, you know, not have all that learning going on and the pressure of dad. If I don't win, dad's gonna yell at me, right? Because I mean, I see lots of dads yelling at kids in the corner, you know, go faster, hurry it up, let's go. Which, you know, I don't know if that's gonna help you at all or not. So I just try to make sure you're having fun and, you know, this is something that we want to keep doing and we're gonna enjoy it. So that's good. I think you have a few special shout outs from yesterday's race. I mean, we were at our home race, right? So you had a lot of people there for you. So what kind of, who do you want to shout out for yesterday?
Well, shout out to my mom, my sister Rayleigh, both the grandma and grandpas.
Mama, Papa, Grandma, Grandpa, right?
Yeah, and for like staying so late just to watch me.
Yeah,
race.
because they were there at 7 o'clock when it got started, right?
Yep.
Had to wait around for 45 minutes to watch a race once, and then they waited around about almost 4 hours. No, 3 hours, I guess. 3 hours to see the next one. So that's pretty good dedication. That we really appreciate them coming and sticking that out with us. So that was really awesome.
I forgot somebody. Shout out to Braden for staying also.
Yeah, Braden stayed a long ways too. So that was good. Also, another one. Special shout out to Tasha Hancock. What did she give you?
So after the race, we got a free soda because if you're older, you get a free beer after the race. I'm like, can't get that.
We went up to get your free beer, and she's like, "Well, I don't have that, but here's a soda on me." So appreciate that, right? You're pretty pumped on that. But we didn't figure drinking a Mountain Dew at 11:30 last night was a great idea. So you ended up having that today, but appreciate it either way. So. All right, well, I think that does it for this week's race recap at the Richland County Fair. Big shout out to Kyle Porter as well. I think he did a pretty cool design on the track. Definitely an improvement over years past. I mean, it's hard to like these fair board guys, they've got to deal with all week of all the shows, all this, tractor pulls, derbies, mud bogs,
go-karts.
That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah.
And so I think over the last couple of years, they've kind of handed some of that track building off to someone that's kind of more into the motocross thing, a little heavier. And so yeah, Kyle did a really good job, and appreciate the fair board for getting somebody like him to come do that. So I think the turnout over the last 2 years has been pretty good, and I think it's probably because a little bit changed things up. So very cool. So all right, well, appreciate you guys watching and following the journey with us, and we will see you next time.